Hanun hor yevort vo yevog winser po. Amen. Today's gospel reading is certainly one of the harshest gospel readings that we encounter throughout the year. It is marked by the signature phrase, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites." And so the question becomes, okay, what's the hypocrisy that Christ is talking about here? What he's referring to is that the teachers of the day, the leaders and the rulers of that age, were certainly living by the letter of the law, and they were teaching others also to live by that law, and yet they missed its spirit. They were following formal protocols while missing the substance of the law. And so the question at the heart of Christ's words today is, what is the substance of the entirety of the law? What is the substance of the 613 laws that are laid out across the 5 first books of the Bible? And our church fathers help us to understand this because they don't start just with this condemnation of the scribes and the Pharisees, but actually our readings begin a little bit earlier. We begin with an encounter between the scribes and Christ, and one of them, who was a lawyer, comes and he says, "Teacher, which is the greatest of the commandments?" And Christ responds in a beautiful way. He says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." And then Christ says, on these 2 commandments depend all the law and the prophets. How wonderful. It's all about love. And so on first glance, it seems that Christ is lightening the burden of the scribes and the Pharisees. Quite substantially, right? He's taken 613 commandments and he's boiled them down to 2. Just love God and love each other. That's all you need to do. How simple. And yet, what we see is that it's these 2 commandments which condemn the scribes and the Pharisees. They actually had mastered the 613 laws found in the first 5 books of the Bible. All the kosher laws and the tithing laws and the laws around sexual morality and ritual purity. But while following each of these 613 laws meticulously, they completely failed at doing so under the yoke of the 2 greatest commandments. To love God with all their heart and all their soul and all their mind, and also to love those around them with the very same love. And so we might be tempted to see Christ's articulation of the 2 greatest commandments as being freeing in some way. But in reality, Christ has truly raised the bar to an impossible standard. With these 2 simple laws, Christ has set a bar that is higher than any of us could ever reach. How discouraging. Yes, I can come to church every Sunday. Yes, I can give up meat and dairy during Lent. Okay, maybe I can even periodically give to the poor or volunteer at a shelter. But can I totally, fully, unwaveringly love God with all that I have and with all that I am? Frankly, this seems to be an endeavor that is simply impossible. To love God with all my mind means that I do all that I can to come to know Him more fully. Not just learn facts about Him, but to know who He is intimately by all of the means that He has given us. Through His scriptures, through His sacraments, through the thousands of years of writings of faithful Christians who came before us. To love God with all my heart means that I desire everything that is oriented toward God. That all of the inclinations of my heart ultimately lead me to Him, to His kingdom, to His will, to growing closer to Him. To love God with all my soul. And by the way, the soul essentially is a word that simply means the entire person. To do so means that I do everything that I do as a person, that all the ways that I interact in this world around me, that each of them are in some way directed toward becoming a child of God, toward becoming holy, toward becoming a saint. With this as the standard, I would much rather the limited 613 commandments to worry about, rather than the infinitude of giving my entire whole self in love to God. So why does Christ set this impossibly difficult standard? A standard that is utterly and hopelessly impossible for us mere human beings. And I think that the answer to why Christ gives us this commandment and how he might expect us to fulfill it comes in the word that he chooses to use for the type of love that we are to have. This is the word agape. This love is not a mere human love, but it's a divine love. This is a love that we cannot come upon by our own efforts. This is a love that we must first experience from God himself. Because, brothers and sisters, Christ only puts this demand on us because it is Christ who first loved us with this type of love, with all of his heart, with all of his soul, and with all of his mind. Which, of course, is shown most perfectly through his total sacrifice upon the holy and precious cross. As St. John's first epistle beautifully puts it, we love because God first loved us. The love that we are called to have for our God and for others is not a love that comes from ourselves and that comes from our own efforts. It's a divine grace. It's a perfect love that we can only share after we have received it from God himself. And so, the more that we can open ourselves up to Christ's unspeakable, immeasurable, unthinkable, perfect, total, world-changing, life-altering, and life-giving love, the more that we can grow in our own capacity to share this love back with God, but also with others. And so as we approach the great and holy week, we will each be given an opportunity to come into the reality of Christ's infinite love for us, of encountering the eternal reality of this divine agape, revealed to us in history through Christ's passion. And when we gather together in this sacred space to remember these events, we are not merely remembering events from the past. We are given the privilege to experience now, today, the personal and intimate love of Jesus Christ, which he shows to us, of course, not just 2,000 years ago during those most holy moments, but each and every day, totally giving of himself to us. And so I pray that we can each come into this Holy Week with the aim of experiencing the totality of Christ's love. And we do so not just to benefit for it from ourselves, but actually to share it once again with God and with others. By experiencing this love ourselves, may we slowly grow into sharing this divine love more and more fully each day. More and more fully living out the two greatest, and maybe the hardest, but most beautiful commandments of the Lord. To love the Lord with all our heart, and with all our soul, and with all our mind, and to share that love with others. May the Lord of love grant us this divine grace now and unto eternity. May we follow St. Paul's beautiful words that we heard in today's epistle reading from his letter to the Colossians, which state, that we should put on love, almost as a garment. Love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Amen.